Baruch Hashem, walking home
Yeah.
from shul.
Oh, you're welcome, Papa Shaw. Okay, very good. So I'm going to, it's a longer daf today, but very interesting. We're going to start from today's daf is Masechta Baba Basra Daf Ches. And we're going to start from Daf Zayin Amud Beis, a little bit towards the bottom, like 8 lines from the bottom. And everything is going to be very straightforward here. We learned in the Mishnah, by the way, if you caught it, that the Mishnah discusses for the inhabitants of the city, you can force people to chip in to build things for the city that are necessary. For example, you can force them to build a security guard for the courtyard that you're living in, or a door to the courtyard. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, or even for a wall for a city. But Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says not every city needs a wall, not every courtyard needs a security guard. Anyway, by the way, there was a lot of break-ins in my side of the town, and the people on the block tripped in to have somebody watch over, be a watchman over Shabbos over the past couple of weeks. Anyway, so the Gemara, interestingly enough, talked about how there was one person, a chassid, who he would learn with Eliyahu Hanavi, but once the group got together to put a security guard in their courtyard, the Eliyahu Hanavi did not come to him anymore. And why didn't Eliyahu Hanavi come to him anymore? So we discussed this briefly yesterday, that Eliyahu Hanavi didn't come to him anymore because by putting in a security guard, yes, you block out the unwanted elements, but there are poor people that need to sneak in to be able to collect, and you're blocking them out too. So Eliyahu Hanavi did not want to visit the chassid anymore, and the Gemara gives ideas on how to work your way around it. That you could have a security guard, and yet the poor person will be able to sneak in if he needed to collect, if the door remains open or he can go around or whatever. That was the Gemara previously. Okay, so now we're just at the bottom of Daf Zayin Amud Beis, Rabbi Yehuda Nisiya. So again, we're talking about putting a tax on people to build infrastructure for the city. So Rabbi Yehuda Nisiya, Rama Deshura Ad Rabbanan, that there was a cost to build a wall, and he said that everybody in the city has to pay for the wall, including the rabbis. Amar Rish Lakish, so Rish Lakish says, Rabbanan Leitzricha Nitirusa. He said the rabbi should not pay this tax because the whole wall that you're building around the city is to protect the common folk. The rabbis, they're so holy that they don't even need a wall to protect them. How do you know that? The pasuk says, Esperem Mechol Yirbiyam. I'll count them, and I'll find that they're more numerous than sand. It's referring to the tzaddikim, to Talmidei Chachamim. Espreim Laman. What does the pasuk mean? I'm going to count them. Ilem letzaddikim. I'm going to count the tzaddikim. The nefishim mechol, that they're going to be more numerous than sand. Hashta kuli Yisrael. The entire Jewish people, ksiv behu k'chol asher svas yam. The entire Jewish people is as numerous as sand on the beach. So tzaddikim, which is just a subset of regular Yisrael, atzma mechol yom, are they more than the sands of the earth? I mean, they're just a part of Yisrael. Yisrael is more than sand. So what does it mean? Espreim, I'm going to count them. Echol yirbiyim. Alahachi kama. This is what the pasuk means to say. Espreim lemaseim shel tzaddikim. I'm going to count the good deeds of the tzaddikim. Mechol yirbiyim, and they're more numerous than sand. And the kal v'chomer. And now you're comparing good deeds of a tzaddik, of a person who learns Torah, and his good deeds are like sand. Machol shemuet megan alem yam. Just a little bit of sand can protect the ocean from the sea, from flooding. You go in Long Beach, you probably can see there's mounds and mounds of sand just in case you get a hurricane. So it protects. The actions at tzaddikim are so numerous, like kolshkem shemagin alem. Of course, it protects them. So the building of the wall of the city is not for them. So therefore, they should be exempt from the tax of paying for the wall of the city. So that's what Rish Lakish told Rabbi Yehuda Nisiya. When they came to Rabbi Yochanan, he wanted to also prove that the rabbis don't need protection of a wall of the city, and they shouldn't have to pay. Amalei, so Rabbi Yochanan said, "My tamalei temalei mahal." He told Rish Lakish, "Why don't you bring this pasuk? Ani chayma v'shodai kemigdalois." Pasuk in Shir Hashirim. I'm like a wall, and v'shodai and my breasts are like towers. What does that mean? Ani chayma zu Torah. I'm like a wall. That is referring to the Torah. That's what he was saying. I'm like Torah. V'shodai kemigdalois. The Jewish people are saying, the Talmid Chacham is saying, I have Torah, and v'shodai kemigdalois. We go to top of Chesam and Aleph. Elu Talmid Chachamim. These are the Talmid Chachamim that they're like watchtowers themselves. The Talmid Chachamim are great people. They don't need protection of a wall. So therefore they're exempt. They should be exempt. So this was a good pasuk that Rabbi Yochanan brought to prove that Talmid Chachamim don't need protection. Rish Lakish sovalak the Darish Rava. Rish Lakish held like what Rava said. Ani chayma zu Knesset Yisrael. I'm like a wall. This is the Knesset Yisrael. Knesset Yisrael is like the Jewish neshama. Everybody has a neshama, but then the Jewish people have one collective neshama that's called Knesset Yisrael. So Knesset Yisrael is saying, I'm like a wall. The Jewish people say, I'm like a wall that I'm protecting myself from assimilating to the nations of the world. V'shadai k'migdalois. And what does that mean? I build beautiful buildings of shuls and base medrashes, and therefore Rish Lakish had a whole different drasha for this pasuk. So therefore Rish Lakish brought a different drasha to prove that Talmidei Chachamim don't need a wall as protection. Says the Gemara, a new story. Rav Nachman bar Rav Chizda Rama Karga Arabonim. Rav Nachman bar Rav Chizda put a tax on the rabbis, right, to pay for infrastructure. Amalei Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Avarta deraisa b'denabiyah b'deksuve. You transgressed from the Chumash, from the Navi, and from Ksubim that indicate that you're not supposed to put extra tax on the rabbis, on Talmidei Chachamim. Adaraisa Diksiv, the pasuk says, "Af choyvev amim kol kadosha b'yadecha." There's a pasuk in Parshas Zoysa Bracha, and this is the meaning. The drush of the pasuk is Oma Moshe lefnei Hakadosh Baruch Hu. God Moshe said to the Eibishter, Rabbonu Shalom, Master of the world, Afila b'shah she'ata mechabev amim. Even during the time that you're showing, you're loving the nations of the world because they're overpowering the Jewish people, Kol Kadosh B'decha, but the holy people of the Jewish people should have special protection from your hand. Okay, so you see, Kadoshev means people who are Kadoshev, even though we're being overruled by Goyim, that God shows them extra protection. Who are these Kadoshim? They are tiku leraglecha. What does that mean? Tana Rav Yosef elu talmidei chachamim shemakatzem ragleya meir leir. They crush their feet from city to city, or Medina from country to country, lilmod Torah, to learn Torah. So these people are always on the move to find the best places to learn Torah. And Yisa midabaraisecha, Lisa velitim b'diburoisav shel makom, and they're here to interact with the words of the Eibishter. So that's one pasuk that says that Talmidei Chachamim should not be taxed. There's a pasuk in Navi that says Talmidei Chachamim should not be taxed. The ksiv in Navi it says Gam yitnu goyim yisnu goy bagoyim atoyik akaptzem v'yichal me'at mimasa mimelech v'sarim. There's a pasuk in Isaiah. Amma Ula explained. Pasuk zeh b'loshen Aramis. Part of the pasuk you read it as if it's written in Aramaic. Itanukula, if all Jewish people are learning Torah, then ata akaptzin. God says, I'm going to gather them quickly, and the Mashiach will come. V'ima'at mehem, if only a little bit are learning Torah, yachelu mimasa mimelech v'sarim. If not, then they will be exempt from the burdens of the kings and governors. So the God will help them get around the issue of taxes or whatever it is. So God says, I'll provide a protection for them. The ksuve ksiv, in ksubim it says, Minda beloy b'halach lo l'shalat l'mirma alehem. Right? Dayavish commanded that they should be exempt from paying certain taxes, those of the Anshe Knesset Agdola. What taxes did the Aryabesh, the king of Persia, exempt those Anshe Knesset Agdola from taxes? V'amarav Yehuda Mimdez U'Menaseh Melech. That's the regular tax. That's maybe regular tax for just living in the country. Beloi zu kesef gidulaisa, and beloi is the type of tax per household, per head in your household. V'halach zu ar noina. That is referring to our noira. That's like a 10% of your income tax. So that's the story. That's the pasuk. Now that's the pasuk again. Not supposed to tax the Talmidei Chachamim of the city. Again, Rav Papa Rama Karya Chadata Ayasmi. Rav Papa put on Yisayimim and orphans, they're not supposed to be, they should be exempt from taxes. He forced them to pay for the digging of new wells for the city. Maybe looking for water is like looking for oil, and therefore maybe it won't be successful. So Rav Shishi asked Rav Papa, how did you make these Yisayimim pay for this? Maybe you're not going to be successful in finding water, and then you're causing a loss for nothing for the Yisayimim. And Yisayimim can't forgive a loss, a financial loss. They're under Bar Mitzvah. So Papa said, Mishkal Shakil Nemene. I took the money from them. Midvel, if we're successful in finding water, Midvel. Then they participated, and they will be part of it. Viloi, Mahadrein Le Nahalai. If they were not successful, then I'm going to return the money back to them. Omar Rav Yehuda said, Hakol la'agle gapa. Everybody has to chip in for the gates of the walls of the city so that they can set up a door of the city. Okay, that's what Rav Papa said. Rav Yehuda said, Afilim yasmi, even an orphan. Orphans have to chip in to this, to the association to pay for this. Avo Rabbanim, the rabbis, they don't have to pay for anything that has to do with the city wall, because again, rabbis don't need that protection. Hakol, everybody has to pay for Karya Pasya. Karya Pasya is a digging of a pit to drink water. Okay, it's called a pasya because you always have, let's say, a vessel in there that people use so to take to dig in, to take water out of the well. And everybody has to pay for that water fountain. Afilim Rabbanah, even rabbis who are not normally taxed, they should pay for that water fountain. V'loy amrin, we don't say that the rabbis have to pay, but they don't themselves have to go out to dig for the well, but rather they hire workers to take their place. In other words, if the people of the city don't do it themselves, but they actually hire a contractor to do it for them, then the rabbis have to chip in. But if it's a type of city that like Chaluzah, that everybody, let's say it's a kibbutz, so that everybody has to take a shovel and help dig for this well. So then, in that case, Rabbanan Labadei Meipek Bachluzah Ninhu. The rabbis don't have to pick up a shovel to help dig with the well with the rest of the kibbutz, because the rabbis, it's not dignified for them to hold a shovel and start digging for water. Now the Gemara tells us one of the most fascinating stories in Shas. Rebbe was considered one of the wealthiest people in the world, and yet there was such an economic recession that most of the people of the Jewish world was poor. But Rebbe was faced with a dilemma. He couldn't feed everybody, so he decided that he's going to only give tzedakah to Talmidei Chachamim. Says the Gemara, Rebbe Pasach Eitzrich B'Shnei Betzaris. Rebbe opened up his treasures during the times of a recession, a hunger, and Omar, and he said like this: I'm going to feed everybody for free, but Yikonsu Bali Mikra, Bali Mishnah, Bali Talmud, Bali Halacha, Bali Agada. Only if you're the type of person that learned Chumash, you learned Mishnayos, you learned the Talmud, and you learned Halacha, and you learned Haggadah. If you were some sort of a master of some sort of a part of Torah, so then you're a Talmud Chacham, you can partake in taking free food. Avala Amma Aretz, but an ignoramus, Al Yakon, somebody who doesn't learn Torah, Al Yakon, so he's no right to take from this free food. So the Gemara says an interesting thing. Dochet Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram ben Nichnas. Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram pushed his way through, and he took from the free food. Amalai Rebbe, he said to Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Parnaseinu, allow me to take from this free food. Amalei, so Rebbe said, Beni, my son, Karisu, do you know Chumash? Amalei Lav, I don't know Chumash. Shanisa, do you know a little Mishnayos? Amalei Lav, I don't know that either. In Cain, so Rebbe said, B'ma afar nescha, why should I give you panasa? What's your merit? Amalei, so Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram said, Parnaseinu kikelev ka'aruv. Just give me food like a dog or like a raven. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbi Kadosh Baruch Hu, gives special food for a dog, and because Hashem knows that a dog has very little, has trouble finding food. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that when a dog eats something, the food stays in his stomach for at least 3 days. He doesn't digest it, metabolize it very quickly. And also a raven, we say it in davening that God gives special food to the ravens. Why? Because when the raven is born, somehow its parent thinks it's not its offspring and doesn't provide it with food. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps the baby raven with little mosquitoes that come out from their excrement, and they eat them. So that's how they find food. So basically, he's saying, at least, follow God. God doesn't have a God doesn't have any judgment. He supplies food for everybody. So Basra the Nafek, after he left, so Parnasei, Rebbe gave him food, and Basra the Nafek, after Rabbi Yonasan left, Yosef Rebbe Kometztar. Rebbe was upset, and he said, because Rebbe had a calculation on his food that he was distributing to the last penny. And he said, Oili shenasati piti lamaretz. Wow, I did a mistake over here. I gave my bread to an Amaretz. I really shouldn't have given and buy into Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram's statements. Alma lafon of Reb Shimon ben Rebbe. So Reb Shimon ben Rebbe, the son of Rebbe, said, Shema Yonasan ben Amram Talmud Chahi. Maybe if you look in your roll book, you'll see he's your student. And he didn't want to say that he's a Talmud Chacham because he didn't want to benefit from the honor of learning in his entire life. Badak, so Rebbe researched it, and he found out that this Rabbi Yonasan ben Amram was a Talmud Chacham. So Rebbe didn't feel so bad. Rebbe said, you can't say alcohol. Then everybody could come in and take the food. Rebbe Latame, Rebbe had a reason for this. Rebbe said, the whole point of Rebbe, why he was so specific that he did not want to support any Amaretz, anybody who's not dedicating at least some time to learn Torah, Rebbe had a reason for that. The Rebbe said, Ein Puranis Bola Oilam, there's no evil mishap that happens to the world, Ela B'Shvil Amaretz, only because there's people not learning Torah. Kahu Demei Kalila Deshari Atberia, there was the value of the crown. The tax to pay for the crown was put on the people of Tiberia. Also, the Kami the Rebbe, so they came to Rebbe, and he said, Leisve Rabbanan Rabbahadan. They came to Rebbe, and the townspeople said the rabbis have to chip in for this tax to pay for the king's crown. Amalahu, so Rebbe said, they don't have to pay. Amalahu, Amrlei, so the rest of the people in the town said, Arukina, we're going to walk away from the town because it's ridiculous that we should have to pay for this, and these guys, free loafers, are not going to chip in. Amalei, so Rebbe said, Aruke, run away. Aruke Palgain, half the regular people left the town of Tiberia. Daluhu Palga. So then what happened was the king waived at least half the cost of the crown. He said, you don't have to pay for it. Also, Palga Bakame the Rebbe. So the half of the townspeople who remained behind came to Rebbe. Amalei Leisra Rabbanan Bahandan. Let the rabbis chip in for the crown. Amalahu, they don't have to chip in. Arukina, so we're leaving the town also. So Araike, so Rebbe said, leave. Arak Kulis, so all the people left the town. Pasha Hu Kaivis, there was only one laundromat, one laundry guy who remained in Tveria, who was not a Talmud Chacham. Shadyu Kaivis, so they put the whole cost of paying for the crown on this washer. Arakaivis, so he left the town too because he didn't want to take the financial loss of paying for the crown. So Paka Kalila, then what happened was the whole crown, the tax on the crown, got waived from Tiberia. And so as soon as everybody left, there was no tax anymore to pay for the crown. Alma Rebbe, so Rebbe said, Re'isem, Don't you see? She'ein parani is bala olam. There's no evil mishap that comes to the world. El b'shvil ami aretz, because the people are not dedicating time to learn Torah. They're remaining ignoramuses. Now the Mishnah said, quoting the Mishnah, the Mishnah says that in order for you to be required to chip in to the tax of the city to pay for infrastructure, you have to live there 12 months. So the Gemara says, I'll prove it to you, that all you have to live there is 30 days. Reminhu, hachameres v'agameles v'aiveres m'makom l'makom v'lonim b'soicha v'hidchi mohem ein b'skilo m'mayim polit. If you're in Ir Anidachas and you come into the Ir Anidachas, you're not considered, if you're there for a night, then you're not considered part of the Ir Anidachas. But if you stay there for 30 days, then you become part of the like an Ir Anidachas. Hein b'sayef, you're killed with a sayef, u'mamayim oved, and your money is totally destroyed. But the point here is that in this brisa, it says that in order to be part of the city, you have to live there 30 days. And our Mishnah says to be part of the city, to be considered part of the city, then you have to live there 12 months. So what is it? Amarava Laikasha, it's not difficult. Hola b'nei masa, hola yusuvi masa. To be considered a resident or someone who lives in the city. Keditanya, Hamuda Hanam Anshe Ir, Kol Nishtahi Sham. If you make a neder, I'm not benefiting from the people of the city, then anybody who lives there for 12 months is part of your neder. But if you live there less than 12 months, mutter, you're allowed to benefit from that person. But if you say I'm not benefiting from those that are living in the city, if he's just sitting, he's just living in the city, he's not part of the city, so then it's a 30-day process. So therefore, the Gemara just made a differentiation. To be an ansheir who has to chip in for taxes, you have to live there 12 months. To consider a dweller of the city, then even for 30 days, you can be considered a dweller of the city, and therefore you're allowed to benefit from, therefore, for that person, it's a 30-day process. Says the Gemara, Kol mila mi be'ina yud beis chaydish, for everything you need 12 months. For Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, shloishim yoim letamchui. If you're living there 30 days, you have to chip in for the charity plate. Shloishim yoim lekupa. If you live there 3 months, you have to chip in for the charity fund. Shisha leksus. If you live there for 6 months, you have to help pay for the free clothing that the city gives out. Tisha lekvura. If you live there 9 months, you pay for helping people with burial. Shnei masa lepasayer. But if you're living there 12 months, you have to pay for the gates of the city. So our Mishnah says 12 months, and yet there are certain things that you have to participate, even if you're living there less than 12 months. Our Mishnah, which says 12 months, means that to chip in for the gates of the city and the wall of the city, that you have to live there 12 months. But the Mishnah is in agreement that even if you're living there less time, you still have to participate in certain charity functions that the city has. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Abasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hakol Abasi Ir, Bafilim Yasmi. Everybody have to chip in for the wall of the city, even Yisaimin, Avo Rabbanan Loy, the Rabbanan Loy Tzrichin Terusa. The Gemara says this a number of times, that rabbis don't have to pay for the infrastructure of a wall of a city because they don't need this protection. Amar Papa Rab Shop says, the Shura Ula Parshol Tarzina, Afilim Yasmi, Avo Rabbanan Loy Tzrichin Terusa. These are to have, let's say, a shomrim, a guy on a horse running the city, or somebody who's watching, who's a security guard, or somebody who's watching the weapons of the city. Even Yisayim have to chip in for that. Although rabbis don't have to chip in for that. Kol lo the milsa. The rule is like this. Klol milsa the isluhu hana mine. Anything that you benefit from it, and they benefit from it, even filim yasmi, even Yisayim, he have to chip into that to that project. Rabba Rama Tzedakah Yasmin the Bar Morain. Rabba forced that the sons of Bar Morion who passed away, that his Yisayim had to chip in for charity. Amalei Abaya v'Taner Rab Shmuel Bar Yehuda ein poiskin staka al Yisayim afilu pidin shuim. Yisayim, they don't have to chip in for any charity, even releasing captives from prison. So why did Rabbah do that to the Yisayim of Bar Maryon? Amalei. So Rabbah explained to him, Anolach shubei kavdina. I did it for the benefit of the people of the Yisayim of Bar Maryon, that they should not look like they're cheap Yisayim. It'll benefit them in the long run that they participated in tzedakah, and when they get older, probably they'll do a shidduch better. The Gemara says, Ifris Hurmiz ime dishavar malka. The Ifris Humriz, which was the mother of the king of Persia, Shadara Anka the dinar lekamid Rav Yosef. She sent a donation of dinars to Rav Yosef. Amar, and she said, she indicated, Lehavi lemitzvah Rabbah. I want you to use this money for a great mitzvah. So what is a great mitzvah? Yosef, Rav Yosef, he was researching the matter. My mitzvah Rabbah, what kind of big mitzvah could I use this money for? Amalei Abayim, in the Tanur of Shmuel by Yehuda, ein poiskin stokan al Yisayim afilu pidyin shvuyim. Shma mina, we go on top of the page of Ches Tetzim Beis. Pidyin Shvuyim mitzvah Rabbah here. Pidyin Shvuyim is a great mitzvah, the greatest mitzvah of all. We're going to go another 4 minutes, 4 minutes, because it's a long daf. Anyway, so when he got this money, he used it for the Pidyin Shvuyim, because that is one of the greatest mitzvah. So the Gemara now just digresses. Amalei Ravel Amari Bamari, Menoha Milsa. How do I know this concept? The Amar Rabam, that the rabbi said, the Pidyin Shvuyim mitzvah Rabbi. The greatest mitzvah a person could do is Pidyin Shvuyim. How do I know that? Releasing getting somebody out of prison, that's the greatest mitzvah. Amalei. So Rabbi Bamari answered Rava, the Ksiv, because it says, its pasuk says, the pasuk gives you a series of bad mishaps to people. Some people get death by natural causes, some get stabbed to death, some die of hunger, and some end up in jail. Rabbi Yochanan explained, anybody that's written later on in the pasuk is the most severest than the one prior to it. So since thrown into jail is the last thing mentioned in the pasuk, it must be that being in jail is the worst of all types of punishments. Being killed by a sword is harder than dying of natural causes. If you want, I could give you a logical reason for that. When you're stabbed to death, or a person is stabbed to death, there's blood all over the place. But if you die of natural causes, then there is no, your body is not repulsed. There's a pasuk says, it's precious to the Eibishter for his chasidim to die of natural causes. Ra'av kasher mecherv, dying of hunger is worse than being stabbed to death. Chas v'shalom. Iba yisei mesvara. High komitztai by high komitztai. The svara is, the logical is, that if you're hunger, then you're in a lot of pain, and being stabbed is just a one-time thing. It's better that those that died of the sword were better than those that died of hunger. You should never know of these things. Shavi kasha makula, but being in jail is worse. The kula is nabu. They have everything. First of all, you get beat up there, chas v'shalom, and a person is hunger there, and there's sword there, and there's other sorts of bad things. So Shavi Pidyin Shvuyim is the greatest mitzvah of all time. So as the Gemara, another 2 more minutes. Tanur Rabbanan, Kupa Shel Tzedakah, to collect for the Tzedakah fund. Nigvish Bishnaim, you need 2 people in charge. Umischalekes, but to distribute it, Bishloish, you need 3 people. Nigbus Bishnaim, you need 2 people collecting. She'ein Oisin Shroros Alatziba, Pachos Mishnaim. You can't enforce a rulership over the tzibur. You need 2 people in charge, because basically they can confiscate things if they feel that you're not giving what you could give. So you need 2 people in charge of that. But they distribute it with 3 people. Kidine mamanis, like regular mamanis, like regular halachas of civil stuff or financial stuff, which need like 3 people, like 3 dayanim. Tamchui, the charity plate where they collect food, nigbas b'shloisha, 3 people should be in charge of collecting the food, u'mischalekas b'shloisha, and they divide it with 3 because you need it, shegibuya v'chiluka shavim, because right away when they're collecting fresh fruit from people, they're distributing it right away. So you need 3 people to be always in charge of the collection and charge of the distribution. Tamchui, the charity plate, the food plate, b'chol yom, is collected every day. Kupa, the charity fund, is me'erev Shabbos l'erev Shabbos, from Friday to Friday. Tamchui, the charity plate, is laniya olam. Anybody, any poor person, not necessarily from the city, can take from the charity plate. Kupa, but the charity fund, laniya ir, that's dedicated for the people of the city. V'rashoim b'nei ir lasus kupa tamchui v'tamchui kupa. You can change it around. They can change the kupa into the tamchui into the kupa. Anything that they decide to do, because sometimes you collect food and you realize you can sell it and have money to give to the people of the city. Nothing is set in stone. And the city can get together to make conditions of what is the measurement of the city, and what prices should be charged for certain basics, and what the minimum wage is. I'm sorry, I don't know. To create fines, like parking fines or something like that. That's what the Bnei Yair can do. Okay, you know what? We will stop over here by Omar Mar. Okay, a lot to cover. Okay.
Sure, thank you.